What happens when twin sisters, raised by a janitor father who cleaned classrooms he could never dream of attending, suddenly become global sensations? Their story left millions speechless, proving that greatness can come from the humblest beginnings. Thomas Everett was no stranger to the clink of his mop scraping the floors of Fairview High School. For the past 20 years, he had walked these halls, sweeping dust and clearing trash. The scent of chalk dust and old books clung to the air in the classrooms he cleaned. But Thomas never minded it. The quiet of the school in the evening, when the buzz of students faded into the distance, felt like home to him. A janitor. That was all Thomas Everett was to most people. To the students who hurried down these halls, barely noticing the man in the faded blue jumpsuit pushing a mop across the floor, he was just part of the scenery, someone who cleaned up their messes. No one knew that Thomas once had dreams of something more. Once upon a time, he was a student at this very school, bright-eyed and eager. Thomas had been the first in his family to ever step foot in a classroom. His mother, a single woman struggling to make ends meet, had never had the luxury of education. So when Thomas showed promise, he was determined to make her proud. He had dreams, big dreams of going to college, becoming someone important, but dreams don't always come true. At 16, Thomas's world crumbled. His father passed away unexpectedly, leaving his mother in a deep state of grief. The weight of loss crushed the family, and the responsibility of supporting his mother fell on Thomas's young shoulders. He had to make a choice, education or survival. With a heavy heart, he left high school and went to work. And so, his dreams were tucked away, buried beneath the practical reality of bills, jobs, and responsibilities. Now, 2 decades later, Thomas still found himself here, in the hallways of the very place where dreams had once burned bright. He had become a janitor, a job that kept him steady, that paid the bills, but never allowed him to reach the heights he once hoped for. Yet, there was a small part of Thomas that was satisfied. He had a family now, 2 beautiful daughters, Maya and Mia, and they were everything he had ever wanted. But his daughters had dreams of their own, dreams that were much bigger than the small apartment they lived in, much bigger than the janitor's closet that Thomas called his workplace. And Thomas would stop at nothing to make sure they didn't end up like him. The sound of the bell ringing, signaling the end of another school day, echoed through the hallways. Thomas adjusted his baseball cap, keeping his head low as he entered the teacher's lounge. He had a routine to follow: mop the floors, clean the chalkboards, and leave the school spotless for the next morning. It was a lonely existence, but it was the life he had chosen, and it was the life his daughters had grown up in. Maya and Mia often waited for their father to finish his shift. They would bring their books, sitting patiently in the hallway while their dad worked. They had learned from an early age that their father's job didn't define them. They could study and become whoever they wanted, no matter where they came from. But that didn't make it easy. When the world saw their father, they saw a janitor, a man who worked hard but had no real power. And when people looked at his daughters, they saw their father's work ethic and grit. But they didn't always see the potential for greatness. As Maya and Mia sat side by side, books open and pencils in hand, their father's words echoed in their minds. Remember, girls, you have a choice. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. You're not defined by this job. You can be whatever you dream. Just promise me you'll reach higher than I ever did. Maya and Mia looked at each other, silently promising their father that they would make his sacrifices worth it. They would make sure that his dreams, the ones he never had the chance to fulfill, would live on through them. They would be better than their circumstances. As Maya and Mia grew, so did their ambitions. They were both driven, not by the fear of failure, but by the desire to make their father proud. They studied late into the night, balancing their schoolwork with the jobs they took to help pay for their education. Thomas could see their potential every day, and it pushed him to work harder, to be better. For them, their lives were modest, but filled with love, and that love, that shared bond, was the bedrock upon which Maya and Mia's future was built. They knew the sacrifices their father had made, how he worked tirelessly to ensure they didn't have to face the same hardships he had. And now, as they approached high school graduation, they found themselves standing on the cusp of something greater than they had ever imagined. Maya had always been the quieter one, the more reserved of the two. She loved science, loved the way the world worked, and dreamed of becoming a doctor. Mia, on the other hand, had always been outspoken. Her sharp mind focused on the field of education. She wanted to teach, to inspire, and to break the barriers that society had set for people like them. Their graduation day was a blur of excitement and pride. As they stood on the stage, accepting their diplomas, their father sat in the audience, his eyes filled with tears. He had made it. He had given them the tools to succeed. And now, his daughters were about to step into the world they had dreamed of. But even as they stood there, basking in the applause of their peers, Maya and Mia couldn't help but feel the weight of their humble beginnings. They were proud of their achievements, but they also knew that the world they were about to enter was a world that would judge them not by their talents, but by the family they came from. When they received their college acceptance letters, both girls were offered full scholarships to prestigious universities. It was a moment of pure joy for Thomas. His daughters had made it, but as they packed their bags and prepared to leave, there was a quiet sadness in his heart. He had always been there for them, always been the one to pick them up when they stumbled. Now, they would be thousands of miles away, facing a world that might not understand them. On the day they left for college, Thomas kissed his daughters goodbye, promising them he would always be there for them. But deep down, he feared the world they were about to enter. The first few weeks at university were overwhelming for Maya and Mia. They were surrounded by students who had never known struggle, students whose parents had paid for their education, students who didn't have to worry about where their next meal would come from. It wasn't that Maya and Mia felt inferior. It was just that the world they now found themselves in felt foreign, like a place they weren't supposed to be. Maya, with her quiet confidence, was determined to succeed. She found comfort in her studies, diving deep into biology, chemistry, and the intricate workings of the human body. Her dream of becoming a doctor felt more tangible now, but there was always a nagging voice in the back of her mind. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she weren't as worthy of this opportunity as her classmates? Mia, always the more outspoken of the two, struggled with the dynamics of their new life. She had been excited to become a teacher, but the elitist attitudes and judgments she faced every day left her feeling drained. She had to work twice as hard to prove that she belonged. Every time someone complimented her on her grades, she could hear the subtle undertone. "How did you get so smart?" coming from that background, and it made her skin crawl. But despite the challenges, the twins remained resilient. Maya stayed up late studying, often sitting in the empty hallways of the library. The only sounds the rustling of pages and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. Mia threw herself into her coursework and her part-time job, determined to show the world that she had what it took to succeed. Through it all, they held each other up. They talked on the phone every night, sharing their frustrations, their dreams, and their fears. They were a team, and they knew they would succeed together. After 4 years of hard work, both Maya and Mia graduated with honors. But it wasn't just their academic achievements that made the world sit up and take notice. It was the story of how they had gotten there. The twins were recognized for their exceptional accomplishments and their ability to rise above their circumstances. Maya had not only excelled in medicine, but she had also developed a revolutionary treatment for pediatric leukemia, one that could save thousands of children's lives. Mia, who had worked tirelessly in the field of education, was named Educator of the Year for her work in transforming failing schools into successful institutions. Their story spread like wildfire, catching the attention of the media, philanthropists, and educators around the globe. The twins had overcome the odds, proving that no matter where you came from, you could achieve greatness. At the prestigious ceremony where they were honored for their achievements, the world watched as Maya and Mia took the stage. Thomas sat in the audience, his heart swelling with pride. The daughters he had raised with love humility, and sacrifice had become leaders in their fields. As they accepted their awards, Maya and Mia shared their story, their journey from humble beginnings to global recognition. But it wasn't just their academic achievements they focused on. They spoke about their father, the janitor who had sacrificed everything for them, who had worked tirelessly to ensure they never had to face the struggles he had. And as the crowd erupted into applause, Thomas, sitting in the front row, realized that his dreams had come true. His daughters had not only achieved what he could never have imagined, they had surpassed it. The global recognition of Maya and Mia was only the beginning. What happened next would change the trajectory of their lives in ways they never anticipated. After their award ceremony, the twins began to receive invitations from organizations, universities, and foundations that wanted to collaborate with them. They were asked to speak at conferences, contribute to scientific journals, and advise on educational reform initiatives. Doors that were once closed to them were now wide open, but with the recognition came the pressure. The world was watching, waiting for them to fail. Every step they took, every decision they made, it was scrutinized by the public. It wasn't just the weight of their achievements that made things difficult. It was the constant reminder of their humble origins, and the fear that they might somehow betray their father's sacrifices. Maya, now a leading pediatric oncologist, found herself at the forefront of a major medical breakthrough. Her team was ready to launch a new drug for pediatric leukemia, a drug that could save countless children's lives. But as the drug entered clinical trials, controversy followed. Some questioned its safety, while others wondered if it was truly as effective as promised. Maya found herself in the hot seat, defending her research and her team's work. Mia, on the other hand, was being hailed as a pioneer in education. She had implemented a groundbreaking program in underfunded schools that was transforming the way children learned. But the program faced opposition from educational boards who didn't believe in her vision. Mia was met with resistance from people who questioned her methods, who said that someone with her background could never truly understand what it took to change the system. Yet, Mia pressed on, determined to prove them wrong. It was during one of these difficult moments that Maya and Mia found themselves standing together, facing an impossible challenge. Maya's drug was on the verge of being approved, but a powerful pharmaceutical company was trying to block its release, fearing that it would disrupt their profits. Mia was fighting to keep her education program alive, but the school boards were threatening to shut it down. For the first time in their careers, they felt helpless. The weight of their success was starting to feel like a burden. They had achieved so much, but at what cost? The pressure to succeed had never been greater, and the fear of failing their father, the man who had sacrificed everything for them, was overwhelming. In those moments of doubt, they turned to the only person who had always believed in them, Thomas. He was no longer just the janitor. He was the cornerstone of their strength. His quiet wisdom and unwavering support had always been their guiding light. And as they sat in his small apartment, struggling to make sense of it all, Thomas reminded them of something they had forgotten. "You've already done more than anyone could have imagined," he said softly, his eyes filled with pride. "But remember, it's not about what you achieve, it's about what you give back. You're already making the world better just by being who you are." His words reminded them of the promise they had made long ago, to reach higher, not just for themselves, but for those who had helped them along the way. And with that realization, they both knew what they had to do. Maya and Mia decided to fight for the causes they believed in. No matter the cost, Maya's drug was eventually approved, saving the lives of countless children, and Mia's educational program became a model for schools around the world. But their success was not defined by these accomplishments alone. As they rose to the top of their fields, they continued to honor the sacrifices their father had made. They worked together to create scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds, just as they had been, to ensure that no child was ever denied the chance to succeed because of their circumstances. They opened clinics in underserved communities, providing care for children who had no other options, and they became mentors to young women who, like them, were trying to navigate a world that didn't always make space for them. Through it all, Thomas remained the quiet force behind their success. He never asked for recognition, never sought the spotlight. He was content in knowing that his daughters had made a difference, that they had lived up to the promise they had made him so many years ago. In the years that followed, Maya and Mia became icons, not just in their respective fields, but as symbols of resilience, determination, and the power of family. Their story became one of legend, a tale of two young girls who rose from humble beginnings to change the world. But at the heart of it all was the man who had made it possible, the janitor father who had never stopped believing in them. As Maya and Mia stood at the podium one last time, receiving a global humanitarian award for their work, they knew that their journey wasn't just about personal success, it was about giving back, about honoring the sacrifices that had shaped them into the women they had become. And as they looked into the audience, they saw their father, still wearing his janitor's uniform, sitting in the front row, smiling proudly. The world had watched them rise, but it had been their father, the man who had held a mop and a dream, who had been the true architect of their success. The world had seen Maya and Mia as success stories, icons of perseverance, but behind the glittering headlines and applause, there were battles they fought in silence, emotional struggles that no one could see. Their journey had not been easy, and even though they had achieved more than they ever thought possible, they still carried the weight of their past with them. For Maya, the strain of constantly defending her groundbreaking treatment had taken a toll. Although the drug she developed saved lives, the media storm surrounding its approval had left her exhausted. Doubts crept into her mind every day. Was she truly the expert everyone believed her to be? Or was she just a young woman who had gotten lucky? Mia, too, found herself wrestling with imposter syndrome. Even as her educational reforms transformed classrooms, she often felt that she was an outsider in the field she loved. The pressure to succeed was immense, and she felt like she had to prove herself every single day. She would lie awake at night, wondering if she was good enough, if she truly belonged among the other educators and leaders. Despite their inner struggles, Maya and Mia had learned to support each other. They spoke often, sharing their fears and triumphs, understanding that they both faced similar challenges. They had spent years building a dream together, and now they were navigating the complexities of that dream side by side. But there was one thing that always grounded them: their father's words. It's not about what you achieve, it's about what you give back. Those words echoed in their hearts, reminding them that their true legacy wasn't in the accolades they received, but in the lives they touched. It was during one of their toughest moments, when the pressure seemed too much to bear, that they remembered the promise they had made to their father. They had promised to reach higher than he ever could. And in that moment, they realized that reaching higher meant giving back in ways they hadn't yet imagined. Maya and Mia's decision to focus on giving back led to a new chapter in their lives, one that was less about personal achievement and more about creating lasting, meaningful change. Maya used her medical platform to create a global network for pediatric oncology, providing resources and support to hospitals and doctors in developing countries. She collaborated with organizations to bring affordable treatments to children who would otherwise never receive care. Her work went beyond developing drugs. It became about making sure that every child, no matter where they were born, had access to life-saving treatments. Mia, inspired by her work in education, launched a foundation dedicated to reshaping the education system for low-income communities. She built schools in underprivileged areas, not just focusing on the academic curriculum, but also on building a safe, nurturing environment where children could thrive emotionally and mentally. She believed that education wasn't just about teaching facts. It was about instilling confidence and self-worth in children who had been overlooked by society. Together, the twins used their platforms to elevate those who had been left behind. They never forgot their roots, and they were determined to ensure that others, like them, had the chance to succeed. It wasn't until years later, after their foundation's success had spread across the globe, that Maya and Mia were invited back to Fairview High School. They were to be honored with a special recognition for their contributions to healthcare and education. And Thomas, now retired from his janitorial job, was asked to speak as part of the ceremony. Standing on the stage of the same auditorium where they had once received their high school diplomas, Maya and Mia looked out into the crowd. The students and faculty of Fairview were now looking at them in awe, as the legacy of the twins who had once sat on the floor of this very school, studying late into the night, had become legendary. As their father took the stage, wearing his signature humble janitor's uniform, the twins couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. Thomas had given them everything: his love, his sacrifice, and most importantly, the strength to fight for a better future. Thomas's voice cracked with emotion as he spoke. "I never imagined that my daughters would change the world," he said, his eyes scanning the crowd. "I only ever wanted them to be kind, to never forget where they came from, and to give back. I'm so proud of them. And I'm proud of all of you for choosing to make a difference. Remember that it's not about what you achieve, it's about what you leave behind." As Maya and Mia stood beside him, tears welled in their eyes. They had kept their promise. They had reached higher, and they had made the world a better place in the process. But above all, they had made their father proud. The legacy of Thomas, Maya, and Mia Everett didn't end with their recognition at Fairview High. Instead, it sparked a new generation of students who were inspired by their story. The Twins Foundation became a model for others, and young people around the world started to believe that they, too, could rise above their circumstances and create change. As Maya and Mia continued their work, they also made it their mission to pass on the lessons their father had taught them. They mentored young women and men who, like them, came from humble beginnings. They taught them not just about success, but about resilience, character, and the importance of lifting others as you rise. Their father's wisdom lived on in everything they did. The world had watched them rise, but it was their unwavering commitment to their values that had made all the difference. And as they looked at the next generation of leaders, they knew that the future was in good hands. Maya and Mia Everett's story became one of legend, not because they achieved great things, but because they remembered the sacrifices that had made their success possible. They carried their father's legacy with them every step of the way, and in doing so, they created a ripple effect that changed the world. And as they sat together, years later, reflecting on their journey, Maya turned to Mia and said, "We did it. We kept our promise." Mia smiled, her eyes filled with tears. "No, Dad did it. He gave us the wings to fly." And so, the legacy of Thomas Everett, janitor, father, hero, lived on through the two daughters he had raised with love, humility, and sacrifice. Their story had come full circle, and it would continue to inspire for generations to come. As the world watches, the story of Maya and Mia Everett continues to inspire, reminding us that greatness is not determined by where you come from, but by the choices you make along the way. From the quiet halls of Fairview High to the global stage, these twins proved that dreams, no matter how far-reaching, are attainable when backed by determination, sacrifice, and a commitment to giving back. Their journey is a testament to the power of family, resilience, and the belief that no matter how humble the beginning, anyone can change the world.